Right. Thank you so much, Jessica, for being here. Like I said, I really do appreciate having you here. It means a lot for you to take time out of your schedule to sit down and chat with me. It really is exciting to have you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for thinking of me and reaching out to me, Luke. I'm excited to talk with you and learn from you today.
Awesome. So my first question is about something that you mentioned on your website publicly. It's that you got your first camera in 2012, but you only ventured into photography as a business in 2018. So my question is, what was happening before 2012, and then what was happening between 2012 and 2018 that then finally pushed you to, take it up as a business?
Goodness, such a good question. I didn't expect to be doing what I'm doing, so that's a really good question.
Take your time with it. Take your time with it.
I was given a camera by my parents. I helped pitch in a little bit. I was in yearbook in high school. I enjoyed taking pictures of my friends. I thought that was super typical. To take your camera everywhere. I found out later on that socially maybe was a little bit annoying. Yeah. I really enjoyed just documenting whatever was happening in our lives, though. And I saw it as just something for fun. So I didn't really do much with it. I did enjoy learning about my camera and improving, and my parents were always pushing me, telling me I should do something with it. But where I'm from, it was a super saturated market, the photography market. Mm-hmm. So I was like, heck no, I do not have the commitment or willpower to try to pursue something like that. So I just kind of put my camera to the side. I was a dancer at the time, so I was pursuing a career in ballet. And then I ended up going and doing missionary work in the Netherlands. And honestly, just kind of forgot about my camera until 2017, 2018, when I had a friend who was getting married and her videographer canceled last minute. And I was like, wow, I am not going to let you go without your wedding being documented. And I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but like, I'm going to do this for you. And so I went back to my parents' house and I literally had to dig through like a cardboard box to find it in my parents' basement, which was really sad. But I found my camera and I did her wedding video and I really enjoyed myself. It was something that I never expected to do or really learned how to do. I just kind of figured it out, and from there things took off. I had family members who were super encouraging, saying it was something I should pursue again, that I was really good with my camera, and videography was just different enough from photography. So yeah, does that answer your question?
Thank you. You travel a lot. You have an opportunity to travel a lot with what you do. And the question would be, what has been the one location that's stolen in your heart, the one place that you've been and you always remember it, it's dear to your heart?
I can't say that there's any one location in particular. I definitely get excited when I get inquiries for cool locations far from home, places I've never been. But I found that usually what really steals my heart is the couples. For example, like I got an inquiry for a wedding in Boston, Massachusetts, and I was really looking forward to it. I love American history, and I was excited to kind of learn about that and see some of the art museums there. But I really just fell in love with a couple. Like out of all the things I saw that day, I just loved spending time with a couple in this apple orchard with their family. And I have a wedding next year in Boston. And while I'm excited to see Boston again, I'm mostly just excited to see the couple. But it's like that everywhere I go, even locations where I'm like, oh, I've been to California 20 times now. Every time I go, it's so new because I'm with different people. So I can't say there's any one location in particular.
That's actually quite beautiful, and it ties into the next question. And it's about the couples themselves. You've committed to work with 25 couples a year. That's quite a significant number. It's quite a huge number. How does it all work, and how are you able to make sure that you're balancing out and spacing out all your work, that it fits into that 1 year?
It's so funny because I feel like I'm used to working with some photographers who will do like 50 weddings a year or 100. So I thought I was being conservative. But yeah, I try to limit it to 2 couples a month. because I feel like that's my sweet spot. That's where I'm able to really connect with couples. I have a lot of couples right now who are dealing with love in times of a pandemic and are having to reschedule their weddings or alter their wedding plans. And so I've noticed it's required a lot more emotional support from my end, a lot more Zoom calls, talking through some of their pain points, helping them brainstorm new ideas. And so, 25 is what I do. I use a client management system to keep track of all the boring stuff like invoices and contracts and that's a new thing. I used to do it all myself, but I have something to like keep me on track with that and remind me of due dates, so that I can focus really.
And how far does your schedule actually go in terms of you speaking about going to Boston next year and I mean we're only in April? It seems like you're very far ahead in your schedule, and how far does it stretch into the future?
Yeah, I'm booking for 2022 right now. I've started getting inquiries for 2023. And this is new. I feel like I went through a branding change recently, and spent a lot of time investing in business education and made some changes. And started booking out. I also think COVID-19 has a huge part in what's happening, where a lot of couples don't trust planning a wedding right now. But yeah, I'm booking about 2022, 2020.
That's actually quite impressive. I think it brings a lot of security, I guess, in a market that's quite saturated. So like you said, photographers doing 150 weddings a year. So there's a lot of photographers in the space, videographers, filmmakers in the space. So being able to be in a spot, in a position where you're like, I'm booked out until this time, I think brings a lot of security to what you're doing, what you're passionate about, which is super, super cool. I think on the topic of the pandemic, how has that affected you as a business, but also as a creative person? Did it affect your flow and the way you do your work? How have you been dealing with, the situation at hand?
Absolutely. It's affected my work and my flow. I've had to adapt a lot, which is hard for my personality. I like to be in control of things and on top of things. So there's a huge learning curve. I feel like I've grown a lot more compassion for my couples though, and had maybe a closer look into what the process looks like for them, and a better understanding of maybe what matters most to them. At the beginning of last year, I had brought on an intern and had planned on bringing her to many weddings with me.
Wow, that's rough.
And so it was a moment where we had to sit down and talk with each other. Like, this isn't going to be what we originally planned. But it actually ended up being really beautiful because we were able to structure an elopement package that was super simple and super basic. I lowered my prices like crazy. More out of, I think, just compassion for couples and knowing that a lot of them were still going to be having their traditional weddings later on, but still wanted to get married then. So it was a big teaching opportunity that, sometimes you have to adapt in your business, that there's things that are going to be unpredictable. We were able to make this little package that was really sweet and simple, and we just went and did like these 1-2 hour weddings in parks and in the mountains. And it was really beautiful, and I was still able to teach my intern, and I was still able to connect with couples.
That's pretty cool. I mean, for me personally, the pandemic was, I think, it was very interesting. Filled with very many highs and lows, different types of emotions. But it definitely brought about some positive things, I guess, if I could put it that way. For example, this YouTube channel, this podcast, wouldn't have been birthed without the time that I was afforded to have because of the pandemic. So I think it's definitely, despite the tragedy that came with it and all the negative things, I can definitely look back and try and pick out some positives, from it. So it's weird to say I appreciate the pandemic, but I think the beauty and the idea is to look for beauty in every situation, good or bad, and figure out what you can learn from it. And I think it's kind of cool to live through a period like that and then see some of the good things that came out of it as well. And are there any aspects, maybe in your personal life or in your creative life, about the pandemic that, bring out some beautiful aspects?
I feel like you have had more time for this podcast. I've had maybe a little more space myself to explore what inspires me. I've read a lot more books. I've gone back to maybe some of the old hobbies I enjoy doing, which is beautiful because as a creative person, you can really get in a rut looking at other artists and their work. And I think
that's true.
I've been forced to take a few more looks inward in the space around me. That's exciting to hear that you've been able to build up your podcast, that you've had more time to do something that you're passionate about.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. I appreciate that about all of this. Funny to say, but let's talk about the name of your brand, which is Honey Fox Films. It's very distinct and very unique. What's the story behind that brand name?
I didn't want it to be my name. That's probably one of the biggest reasons. Is my name is Jessica, and there are 100 million Jessicas. So
that is true.
From a marketing standpoint, I knew I would definitely get lost in the crowd. Just being honest. But also, I didn't want my brand to be about me. I wanted this business to be a little more reflective of the couples I work with.
Wow.
Animals are something I'm super passionate about. I think we can learn a lot from animals. And a fox is a nickname that my husband kind of gave me when we were dating in high school. He painted a fox on my face, so I was like, "Oh,
that is sweet. That is very
cute
sweet.
Little backstory there. A little cheesy, but it's okay. Love is a little cheesy, so
it is."
And then I recently rebranded. It used to be a royal fox, and I didn't have a lot of connection to that word royal, and had a really hard time explaining it. I also felt like it wasn't super. It didn't roll off the tongue. So honey is what I changed it to. I have this passion, this aspiration to be a beekeeper someday.
I've seen it on your website. Yep.
I am very open. I'd love to be a beekeeper, and I feel like honey is something. It's a name that we use to call each other. It's also a feeling, a way to describe love. It's sweet like honey. And so I'm just kind of playing into that honey fox feeling.
I mean, it's super cool. The story behind that. But I think speaking about that, I just realized that there's so much I know about you already without having spoken about you, because of how open you are on your website, just generally really pouring out who you are and your personality and things like that and what you like. Is it not nerve-wracking to have that much information about yourself for, people to know? Or have you seen it actually positively impacting how people react to you when they reach out to you?
A part of it is terrifying. I am definitely naturally an introvert and keep to myself.
I would have never thought. Given the amount of information on your website, I would have never thought you would.
Oh man, it's years of therapy. I'm definitely more of an introvert though. I have noticed though that the more I put myself into my brand and my work, the more others are able to be vulnerable and open up to me as well.
Wow.
And so it's really beautiful when a couple reaches out to me and they're like, we saw your website and we didn't just fall in love with your prices or films you make, but they said like, we fall in love with you, or we feel like we can connect with you. And so I guess I realized the importance of putting yourself out there, and how that facilitates a relationship. It facilitates an opportunity for other people to connect with you. So it's terrifying. I definitely have my boundaries. There's things I won't share with other people. But.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's for me, it was very encouraging to see. Like I'm saying, it felt like I was there and I was getting to know you without actually meeting you. But I was terrified as well because I'm an introvert, hardcore introvert. And I was like, I don't think I would be ever able to do this. It's just wow. But I think it was encouraging, and I think hearing what you're saying about how people react to that, I didn't just fall in love with the prices of your work, but I fell in love with you, the individual behind it, before even meeting you. And I think that's an important aspect, and I think a very good point for people to consider, maybe putting themselves more out there with boundaries, of course. So I think that's really cool. But yeah, what are some of the challenges of running your own business, and how have you been able to deal with them?
I think one of the biggest challenges is myself. Some of my own weaknesses, my procrastination, or my inability to connect with that creative part of myself sometimes gets in the way and can be really frustrating. It's an unpredictable job. I feel really lucky right now, having as many clients booked as I do.
Yeah.
And I feel really blessed with the clients that I do have. These couples I have are incredible, and I'm connecting with them in a way I've never connected before. But it still can be really scary, and I have anxiety, and a lot of that comes up when I'm those in between the wedding moments, when I'm editing their films, or the weeks leading up to meeting a couple in real life can be really stressful. So those are some of the harder parts of my job.
I mean, that goes without saying, I think, for any kind of creative, being able to make a project and
not knowing whether the client is going to love what you've produced or not. It's quite a scary space to be in. And like you're saying, the uncertainty of it all as well. Just the market has so many options. Your next door neighbor could be a photographer and filmmaker, and it's just like there's so many options. So like I was saying earlier, just being in a space where you can find that security, where you're knowing that I've got clients a year from now, 12 months from now, 8 months from now, it's something to be very grateful for. And I can only hope and wish that it continues like that for you. I mean, your work kind of speaks for itself, so I'm not surprised to see that many people reaching out to you for your work, because it's really, really phenomenal. I applaud the work that you do, and I'm really inspired by it.
Thank you so much, Luca.
You are most welcome. But what are you most grateful for? I mean, you just spoke about the hard parts of being in the space, but being a creative, having taken photos, having had a camera for the last 9-10 years, what are you most grateful for about your first, like when you look back at it and you're like, I got a camera 10 years ago, this is what I'm most grateful about, my interaction with the camera. What is that one thing? Or two things, or three things, or four things.
You already know.
No limits.
I'm grateful that I didn't decide to pursue it right away. I'm grateful.
You took your time with it.
Yeah, I'm grateful that it was something that just kind of happened to me, because I otherwise probably would have gotten really frustrated with it. Because it is a lot of work. I think a lot of people don't realize that to be a filmmaker, you don't only have to know how to work your camera. You have to have those editing skills, the producing skills, as well as all the business skills and the marketing skills. I mean, making this podcast, there are a lot of things that people don't see behind the scenes, the client relationship, the finances, and thank goodness I have a husband who can help me with that kind of stuff, because that goes way over my head. But I'm glad that I pursued a few other things in my life that led me to this point where I can appreciate all these aspects of my job and do them well and be passionate about them. I'm glad I made all the mistakes along the way so that I can be in this position where I think I can do things well.
That's a big one. That is a big one. People don't often look at mistakes that way. A lot of people experience something and take, quote unquote, a loss, and that's it for them. That's more than enough to kick them out of the game. But I think I've spoken about this on the podcast with a lot of people. I think people definitely need to grasp the idea of mistakes, losses, quote unquote, being lessons more than anything else. It's like I've experienced it. I know how not to do it next time. Let's keep moving and, adjust it from there. So, it's super cool to see that that's something you're grateful for. Not many people will put that on the list, and not many people appreciate mistakes that way. So it's super cool.
Oh, I'm glad you agree.
I definitely appreciate that. But I mean, moving forward, 3 years now with your business since 2018, and I mean, it definitely looks like it's done a lot, it's been able to achieve a lot. But what are your hopes and dreams for it in the future? What are you hoping for it to become or to grow to become?
I I don't know. I used to like to plan things out super far in advance, and before doing filmmaking, I did have all these plans of what was going to happen 1, 3, 5, 10 years out. I'm in a season of my life though where I'm comfortable with the change I'm experiencing right now, and I'm okay not knowing what's going to be so far out. I do know that I want to do a mental health course for creatives. So I studied psychology in school, and while I'm not practicing anything with psychology or social work anymore, it's still something I'm super passionate about, and I see a need for it in the creative industry. I just see a lack of boundaries or a lack of understanding on how to take care of yourself with such an emotionally demanding job. So I'd like to make some sort of course or workshop, and that's something I'm working on for the next couple of years. But other than that, I'm really focusing on the couples I have right now and delivering the best experience possible for them, improving my filmmaking skills, and we'll see what happens as we go.
It's very interesting to hear how you studied psychology. Did you enroll in any course whatsoever creating?
I mean, I did. My first year of college was 100% dance classes. I think I took like a math class that was required. So ballet and like the improv classes that I did were very much creative, but in a different way.
Yes. No, that's very, very much a creative space for sure.
But yeah, those are the only creative
So you've never enrolled in any kind of film editing kind of course? It's all self-taught.
My camera manual and YouTube have been my teachers.
Wow. So, I mean, what has been the key, especially, I know it's difficult. I know I struggle as well and like you're saying, some of these things can be very daunting, hearing about using external lights, learning how to fly a drone, learning how to edit in Premiere Pro, things like that. What was the key factor that kept you, kept pushing you to learn more and look for more on your own? That kind of discipline just doesn't come from nowhere. So what were the key elements of your routine, of your schedule, of your life that got you to where you
are? My answer is honest, but it's probably not the best idea. It's just a drive for perfectionism.
Honesty is key.
I like to be really good at things, and if I don't know how to do it, I either won't do it, procrastinate learning how, or I will become the best at it.
Wow. Okay.
And so that's not the most healthy approach. That's why I'm being honest. But yeah, it's a lot of stubbornness and pride, and I'm going to figure out how to do this because I have to.
So you just really wanted it, and you weren't going to let anything stop you.
Yeah, I think so. And I think knowing that I had paying clients who trusted me was probably another driving force.
Okay.
I was like, I have to do it.
You have to deliver quality. No, that makes sense. That makes sense for sure. And what was it like for you? And I know it's always difficult breaking into the market, getting your first clients. How did you go about moving from just taking photos for fun and actually saying, hey, I'm going to start charging? And how was it feeling, the reaction you got when you got your first real paid gig?
Yeah, like I said, I had a friend whose wedding videographer quit last minute, so she was like my first wedding. That fall, I had 2 cousins. One of my cousins and one of my husband's cousins were getting married. So I did both of their weddings. Again, just kind of as a for fun thing, saying, hey, this is the thing I'm trying.
But you were paid for this, right?
They paid me like $50.
Oh like my goodness.
And so I didn't know that I was going to do it at that point. I was like, let's see how this works. And after that, I was like, yes, like I'm going to do this. So I hopped on a Facebook group, and there was some mom who's like, I can pay somebody $200 to do my daughter's wedding video. And I was like, yes. Like, I am so.
Do you still have that video?
Oh yeah, it's horrible. I feel like there's some beautiful moments in it, but I didn't know what I was doing.
Mm.
And then I had a sister-in-law, one of her friends was getting married. And that was an out-of-state wedding. And so they were like, we'll pay for your travel. And I was like, if you cover my travel.
Okay.
And that kind of kickstarted the travel thing. So that first year or so, it was a lot of me saying, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, but will you please just let me show up with my camera?
Yeah.
And I built a pretty strong portfolio. At least I thought so at the time. Now I look back at it a little bit.
And you're like,
it's like, I don't know why they trusted me. I guess it was good enough.
That's so true.
So that's how it started out. Yeah.
That's so beautiful. I mean, I look back at some of my work. I'm scared to look back at it now, and I'm like, why would someone pay me for photos like this? Like, I do not understand. But I think it's very important, and just looking back at it, how so supportive the people around me were at the time. It was, for me, a big thing in spurring me on. And I think at the time I really thought I was killing it. Even now I think I'm killing it, but I'll look back at it 5 years from now and I'm like, wow, what were you thinking at that time? So, but I think we all start somewhere. As the first thing, and I think just having a group of people around you who just believe in you, who just are able to trust you, is something also to be very grateful for, and it's something that's super cool. So that's a very cool story, really. But a question I ask a lot of people on the podcast, I think one that's very important to me, is the concept of balancing your creative life and your private life, getting time for yourself. And a lot of people aren't able to give straight answers. A lot of people are like, it's hard to find the balance. You don't really find the balance. A couple of people have routines and methods that they've implemented, but what's the trick for you? How do you find the balance to your creativity, the attention it deserves, and your private life, the attention it deserves as well?
This is a really good question. I think a really important question.
Yeah.
And my answer is boundaries. I'm a huge fan of boundaries. From a mental health perspective, and also just enjoying your work, creating a sustainable business, it's really important to have boundaries. And so I have boundaries with my clients. I usually don't let them text me. They just have my email. And they know that that's the best way to get a hold of me and for me to get a hold of them.
Yeah.
They can reach out to me on social media too, but I'm not very good at responding to DMs, and they know that. I'm very upfront and let them know. Communicate what that boundary is. That email's the best way. I have certain work hours. I lay everything out in my contracts, what's okay and what's not okay. And my contract is a huge reflection of the mistakes I've made. And they're mistakes I've learned from. So I set up boundaries in there. And then I also set up boundaries for myself. I try my best to close my laptop right at like 4:30, which is when my husband gets done with work, and that is when the work day ends. Of course, inspiration, creativity comes to us all the time. It doesn't have like certain work hours.
Yeah.
And so that's really hard to balance, and I'm not perfect at it. Sometimes I'll pull my laptop back out. But my husband knows that that's one of my boundaries. And he'll give me gentle reminders, hey, put the work away, like it'll still be there tomorrow. But yeah, that's kind of how I try to keep a balance, is just kind of setting myself up. Say, hey, this is the time you have to create, and then this is the time you have to rest, so that you can show up again tomorrow and do it again.
I mean, it's big. It's big for me. Like you say, creativity comes. I'll be ready to sleep, and I'll be in my bed, and then I'll be like, creative idea, and I'm out and opening my laptop. So I think I definitely need to be working on my discipline. I definitely need to be working on boundaries, like you're saying. And I think it's super cool that you've got your husband who can help you, hold you accountable in a sense. And I think it would be really cool for me as well. I mean, I got a bunch of roommates to help me hold accountable. So I think one of the important things I'm picking up here is to find someone who can help you keep you accountable. Like, hey, bro, be off your laptop, get some rest. Just that nudge, that reminder, would go a long way to ease your mind and get some relaxing time, because like the creative mind never sleeps with you. It never sleeps with you. But I appreciate your answer. Thank you so much. It means a lot. But I only have one more question for you, which
feels weird. We've been speaking for about 40 minutes now, but I did promise not to take too much of your time. And again, I appreciate you taking time to be here. It does mean a lot. And the question is, if you had the opportunity to go back and tell your younger self to look out for something as you enter this creative journey, what would that one thing be? The one thing you probably wish you knew before you entered this journey. What would that one thing be? Or two things, or three. No limits.
You know me so well now. I struggle with these type of questions because I'm so grateful for what my past self did. I know I wasn't perfect.
Yeah.
I'd maybe say to be a little more patient and understanding with the mistakes I'm making. Worry less about perfection, instead like let inspiration takes you where it takes you and you'll figure it out along the way. But be patient knowing that you're going to make mistakes, be humbled by them instead of get frustrated by them.
That's big. The temptation and the natural reaction in the moment is to probably be frustrated. Seeing the amount of time, effort, and planning that goes into certain things, and it doesn't go through. You're like, but why me? But I think patience is key, in not just creatively, but in life, just generally good life concept to master is the concept of patience. So that would be a really important thing, not just for me to grasp, but for everybody to grasp as well. And I appreciate you sharing that. But yeah, that's all the questions I have for today. It does feel very short, but I appreciate it so much. You taking time to be here and chat does mean a lot to me.
Oh, it means a lot to me that you reached out. I appreciate your time and your efforts to make this a meaningful experience. And when you said that you weren't an extrovert, that you're an introvert as well, I didn't believe you because
no,
you were so kind.
Most people don't believe me, but I definitely love my time alone. I value it so much. And I'm unbothered being alone. But I think I definitely do care about people and the human mind and what it has to offer. I'm always fascinated by having 5 photographers lined up in a row, 5 filmmakers lined up in a row, but just having them see things differently, different perspective. Take the same photo, same angle, but just it comes out differently in the final product. So the idea is just to dig into these brains, see what makes them tick, see what makes them so different, and hopefully you can pick cherries from each other's trees, and creativity kind of feeds off other creativity, I guess.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I really appreciate your passion.
Thank you so much. So yeah, I guess my love and passion for the arts and people overshadows my introvertedness for sure. But thank you so much. I appreciate it. You have a wonderful rest of the day.
Likewise. I mean, it's nighttime there, so go get some sleep. Take a break.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Have a good night.